What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. As we get pretty close to the combine, as a matter of fact, as many of you are listening to this, the 40-yard dash might be happening for some players, but we're going to actually give you some of our initial takes on the draft, whether that be a breakdown of a specific player or just how we feel about a position group as a whole. That'll be what today's episode encompasses mostly. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I am on a very relaxing, stress-free vacation, or at least I was until I saw a video of some old man slandering my good friend Matthew Sponhour. I just so mad I had to whip out the phone on my walk home from the beach. Or not even that, I wasn't at the beach.
He ruined vacation.
It means a lot. That guy is hilarious, man. And the comments on the video you made, I don't know if you saw them all, but they're killing me, man.
A lot of them are funny. Some of them are like, he just has a different take than you, man, and you're attacking him. It's like, a lot of people have a different take than me. I'm only mad at this guy because he's a dick. His profile picture is like, I'm not for everyone. It's like, yeah, because you're probably not for most people because you're fucking
I saw he said something mean about Nico unprompted, and I'm afraid that's fighting words. There's
who has beef with Nico?
To be fair, I think I did maybe start all of this because I got tagged in his video initially on Richardson, and he's like, Richardson is terrible, and I have proof. And then he just like scrolled through all the box scores on ESPN, and I think I was like, this is incredible work, man.
Maybe you did start it. I kind of thought you started it. Regardless.
So it may have been my fault. It may have been my fault, but
he also said that JSN was like wide receiver 7.
But he's high on Ivan Pace. So he does get a pass, I'm afraid.
Is he?
He's still my friend.
Okay.
But outside of that,
so
then I'll delete the video. Then
he said I'll delete because Cincinnati players never miss. As long as, but he doesn't like the Ohio State player, so he's on thin ice right now.
It seems like his and what the comments are telling me, because I have not watched enough of his videos to know all the lore, but his shtick seems to be he likes not only players of maybe a certain
complexion,
but one's from also like very small schools, and like
why?
I just don't want him to be mean to poor old Nico. That's all I'm asking. But I'm having a pretty good day too. The weather's good here, probably not as good as it is in Florida, but I'm rocking the t-shirt and the shorts. It's starting to get warmer.
It's crazy.
The farther you get into winter, the more and more I feel that anyone who thinks winter is a better season than summer is just a lunatic. I can't imagine how you could possibly think that. I mean, seasonal depression's a thing for a reason. It's that bad. So
the only people who think that are from like the deep South or Arizona, where they like winter is really nice and summer is just ass. But if you are in a seasonal place,
yeah,
like, bro, scraping I sentence you to scrape ice off your car every day for 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a week of like 90 to 100 over a week of like 30 to 20 every day of the week, man. It's not even a question. But
yeah,
outside of that, I haven't done much today.
Not even close.
It's like 70 degrees here at night. I walk out, it's like 1 in the morning, and it's just like gorgeous outside.
Making me mad.
Doesn't matter what time of day. I just do. That's why I'm even up at 1, just so I can go do that and just experience it for.
That's why I love like whenever we go to Vegas and we're just chilling, and you can just walk around at night. And it's like 75 degrees, and I'm like,
well, when we're there in Vegas, we have to walk around at night because it was like,
man. It sucks because it's dry, and I blame that for my plane. There's no clouds, and I blame that for my plane nosebleed that happened on that trip, and it was That was horrible.
That's right. That did happen. I remember being on the tarmac for like 30 minutes, and like the plane was just boiling. We do it pretty well in Vegas though, because we just Uber everywhere, so we get in cars that are already like air conditioned and everything. So it's pretty nice. But anyway, that's enough about our weather report.
That's enough about the Stay Hot's take on staying hot.
That's true.
But we have a little bit of news to touch on. What?
Wait, I don't know how Rico could ever say this podcast was boring.
Did he say that we're boring?
Yes. I don't know how he could think that. We just gave a very in-depth review on.
We are not helping. We are not helping.
Bro might be right.
Yeah, I was going to tell the story about how my sister called me to ask a question about her math homework.
He was dead on, I fear.
He got one thing right, and it's that we're boring as hell. Anyway, some news to hit right off the bat. There's two guys we need to talk about. First is John Morant. All right. The Bleacher Report tweet says that he is alleged for punching a 17-year-old 12 to 13 times, which is oddly specific, and then flashing a gun at him. I mean, this is just bonkers to me. And then the chalkboard was saying that he got suspended, but it looks like they may have fallen victim to a fake tweet.
The chalkboard would never spread misinformation on purpose. That's for sure.
Never.
Yeah,
are we at 5,000 yet, Theo? Are we at 5,000?
I don't think so. I haven't checked recently, but
yeah,
with Ja, no, I mean, I have no good explanation for why he is acting this way, man. It's lunatic behavior to have everything that a person needs, like money and, fame. And he's playing basketball for a living, and he's still just putting it seemingly at jeopardy, like pretty often these days. I know the Pacers bus story came out where he like allegedly flashed a gun at their team bus, and he's lucky that he didn't get kicked out of the league for that, honestly.
Yeah.
And just like beating up kids
this was during a pickup basketball game last summer.
For no good reason, I guess, just to appear tough or to appear that he won't take shit, but it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, no one thinks that's cool, beating up like a 17-year-old. Like, yeah. I truly hope that he like grows up, honestly, because I don't think that this is mature behavior in any type of way. It's just stupid and reckless. And
I went and read some of the article, and apparently he says that he hit him in the head with a basketball, but the kid says that it was an accident and so. Regardless,
even if he did hit him in that, I don't care if he threw that basketball at his head as hard as he could. Like, you'll walk away.
You see those people on Twitter who are like, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't let that slide. It's like, actually, in real life, it's not worth it. Actually, in real life, you should just let it go.
Let it slide.
I don't know. I guess I don't know all the details of all of these events, and I don't want to speak too strongly on it when obviously he hasn't been like prosecuted for it or anything. But it seems like unforced errors, and you got to just chill out and not do this stuff. I don't have too much of a take on it other than that. But like, dude.
Yeah, chill out.
It's not a good idea.
Take to have on the situation. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough thing to have a take on. I would guess that the NBA probably doesn't suspend him unless of like footage leaks.
Yeah.
If footage leaks, they'd suspend him. If it doesn't, they probably won't. I think is probably my take on this.
Yeah. I think
this happened a little while ago too, right? It wasn't just recently, or am I wrong?
No, okay, well, it's from last summer.
Anything? I don't even know why it's making rounds now. Then,
so apparently, the teenager told detectives that Morant went to his house and there was like a gun in his waistband that he was showing, but that wasn't like but he didn't initially report that.
That's a real bad idea to do that stuff. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, and it's a recurring pattern of behavior now. Like, you could say, I doubt this, or I doubt the Pacers story, but it's like, why does Ja keep finding himself getting accused of these things, dude? Like, it's pretty clear to me. Like, I think that when things like this get reported, I do think where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think people are just completely like, oh, I know, I'm just going to make up some grand story, especially the Pacers thing. Like, we're talking about the actual, like, NBA team, right? Like, they're not gonna they have no reason to just make something like that up, I would think. And now it's been backed up multiple times that he's, like, threatening and posturing and over stuff that doesn't matter at all. Threw a basketball at his head. They kicked my friend out of the arena. Like, these things are not worth your staking your career on. Or risking your career for. So again, it's chill out and grow up, I guess, is what I would say. But yeah, I don't have a totally strong take on this.
The other news would then be Jalen Carter, who could potentially have a misdemeanor on his hands for reckless driving. And even though the initial report looked worse, I don't think it'll end up affecting his draft stock.
Media literacy was kicking NFL Twitter's ass earlier this morning with the Jalen Carter stuff. They're like, it's because it kind of sounded like he was the driver in a crash that killed people. Right, is like what initially people were acting like happened. But that the actual facts of the case are that he seemed to be racing or driving recklessly. And then in the other car that was with him, the driver was drunk and going like 100 miles an hour. And then they crashed and they unfortunately passed away. And then Carter initially said, like, I wasn't anywhere near it. And he apparently was. And so now there's an arrest warrant out for him. They're going to bring him back and maybe try to get this thing, like, totally hammer out what these details are.
Right.
Look, like, drag racing is completely idiotic. Like, racing on public roads is so fucking stupid. Like, you're just so selfish and you're basically okay with the fact that you might just kill an innocent person on the road when you drive like that. It's mind-numbingly dumb. I just don't understand how people do it. I don't understand. So I think that definitely does speak poorly on Carter. Like, if this is true, and I know he put on his story, like, I will be exonerated. None of this is true, but, you know, who knows? But working with what the detectives and what the conclusions seem to be right now from the police reports or whatever, like, that is an idiotic thing to be doing. But in terms of how it affects his draft stock, I just can't imagine a misdemeanor reckless driving charge is going to do much to a guy who is, like, very clearly the best prospect in this draft. Like, that's just the way it is.
And we were talking a little bit before about how this has a lot of time to get the rest of the details on it. Like, we're months out from the draft right now, so we'll probably know everything there is to know by the time selections are actually being made. Whereas with, like, we were talking about a Laramie Tunsil where something happens on draft night and all of a sudden you get nervous, this is a little bit different. So it's definitely something to monitor a little bit, but I agree that it's probably not going to mean that your team drafting in the mid-teens is all of a sudden got a shot at Jalen Carter or anything.
Right, because he made, like, a stupid, like, idiotic decision. But, like, if you can say, oh, man, this just killed two people that I know, like, you probably, I would hope, would learn from that and not make that mistake in the future. And if you're, like, overall, because it seems like his teammates will go to bat for him as, like, a player and as a person and as a teammate. Like, he's not a hard worker. Like, going forward in the locker room, he seems fine and all that. Like, it's not like this is a recurring problem, it seems like, not to defend it, but, like, that's what teams would care about more probably than, like, one mistake. Like, oh, he got a misdemeanor one time, he was involved in this unfortunate accident. Like, he learned a lesson and like he probably won't do that again. Like if teams can talk themselves into that, they'll pick him high. And I think that
what I would think would happen is, you know, at the combine and as we do draft interviews, right, teams are just going to ask him about it. Right. I think that's what he will just get questioned about it, and how he answers that will determine, you know, how he goes in the draft. I'm talking to, you know, someone that, you know, a coworker from, you know, my internship, and I just signed there full time for after I graduate. But I was talking, he's a Bears fan and he lives in Chicago, and he's talking about like, you know, he's like, if they take Will Anderson, then I know that Jalen Carter did not respond well to questioning about this very topic. And I think that's probably where most people will stand on this, right? Is like, if he doesn't answer questions well, if he gets too defensive, if he's not really willing to take responsibility for it, then he could fall.
It makes it makes this weekend very important. Absolutely. And the timing of it is so weird, like that it would drop now, like right before all these teams are about to interview. And I think people have known about it for a while, because Todd McShay a while ago reported that like, oh, there's character concerns with Carter. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like, everyone has glowing things to say about him. He helped pay for his teammates' lunches and meals and whatnot. Like, this guy's great. But obviously McShay knew something. About it. So
right.
It was probably this. Now I guess this is hearsay and speculating and everything else, but it's clearly someone knew something, I think. And I think that teams, I know they said like, we're completely surprised by this. This is the first we're hearing of it, but I think that teams may have known a little bit more than they're letting on. So we're not in the room. We can't interview him, I guess, but it will be extremely important that he can answer for this, I guess. But
yeah,
I don't know. At the end of the day, I still probably would mock him high based on everything I know right now, which is probably what people care the most about.
Right. But yeah, the weekend there might be there could be a lot of change up. We'll see how it goes. This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by our good friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Now, if you're like me trying to eat healthy on a college student's budget, look no further than HelloFresh. Cut back on expensive takeout and delivery and get started with HelloFresh's latest line of meals, featuring robust flavors and filling portions ready in less than 15 minutes. You'll love just how fast, easy, and affordable it is to whip up a restaurant-quality meal right in your own kitchen. And with ingredients that have traveled from the farm to your table in less than 7 days, you know HelloFresh is hooking you up with ingredients more fresh than a Joe Burrow pregame fit. I love HelloFresh. My family loves HelloFresh. We at Stay Hot. We all love whipping it up in the kitchen. So go on over to HelloFresh.com/StayHot65 and use the code StayHot65 for 65% off plus free shipping. Again, that is HelloFresh.com/StayHot65 and use the code StayHot65 for 65% off plus free shipping, and get HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. But as far as actual discussions about the draft, you know, we're going into just like generic takes. I feel like is kind of where we're leaning towards this. If you have a player that you really like, you know, Theo, I know you're a big Nolan Smith fan, but you've talked about him a little bit. Maybe you bring up someone else today. Matt, maybe you're really high on, I don't know, the tight ends. And you want to talk about
just some initial thoughts, just kind of not even a structured podcast, but just kind of spitballing and bouncing ideas off of each other about some of our initial thoughts before the combine and whatnot for this one. Not really a specific position group or theme throughout the episode, just talking about the draft.
Yeah, just shooting the shit with my guys, you know?
That's exactly right.
All right, Matt. What's your first? What are you feeling right now?
I am kind of out on Levis, and I've been a Levis defender
Really?
because so many people are like, I don't understand why any team would think about drafting him any higher than like the 4th round on Twitter. And I'm like, well, hold on. They're not that crazy. I really, 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 really think the pocket presence stuff is a killer. That's one of my, I'd not to say that I have some genius draft strategy when it comes to quarterback, but the big 3 things to me are arm strength, mobility, and pocket presence that are really hard to teach. And Levis's was so bad with Kentucky. And there's so many times where he takes bad sacks and it shows up on tape. That is something that makes me really, really nervous. Now, maybe you've seen with Burrow, he did a better job this year of not taking bad sacks. So maybe it is something you can improve on more so. But when, as somebody who's a fan of a team that needs a quarterback, I'm really nervous about the Panthers getting him and that still being a problem.
I think the best example of a guy with like good traits but bad pocket presence is Daniel Jones. And, you can say, well, Daniel Jones kind of figured he's gotten a little bit better at the pocket management thing, but it took him 4 years.
Yeah, he's at the end of his rookie
right.
contract.
So that's the thing you would be wanting to ask is like, are you willing to wait 4 years for your guy to finally start to turn things around in that area?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm out on him in the first round. I don't think I would, but he is definitely concerning. I mean, he's a contact magnet, especially also not only when he is in the pocket, but also when he takes off and he scrambles, right? He's not going to make anybody, like, he's fast, maybe in a straight line. He's not a bad athlete, but he's not going to make anybody miss. He's not twitchy. He just absorbs contact. And that, it is concerning. It is a bit concerning. That is certainly true. And he's older. Right. He's an older prospect.
I mean, it's like, if we're talking about 4 years to turn it around, like, dude, he's going to be like 28, And I'm not saying it's necessarily going to take him that long, but when you've got other things you also want to work through, when it comes to a Richardson, I feel like he's younger. He only played 1 season, which is maybe a negative, but I kind of, when we're talking about a project guy, I think that's kind of a positive that he didn't play 3 seasons and he's still at this point. And the pocket presence is there, and Richardson has way better tools, in my opinion. And on top of that, you feel like, okay, if we can just get the accuracy and maybe, reading the field more consistently and we put good weapons around him, that probably can happen a lot quicker than I think it can for Levis.
With Levis, I think that the key is going to be, like, let's get him into a pretty good system here, which is the key with every quarterback. But if you could get him in a Shanahan system, he's got the quick release. I don't think he's necessarily like super inaccurate. I think that he's got some accuracy. So if you can kind of take that pocket presence out of it, almost like there's going to be someone open at the top of your drop. We're going to design it that way. We got a great play caller. Then if you can have that, he's a good vessel to get he's a good vessel if someone like Kyle Shanahan is pseudo playing quarterback with the decision making, because he's got the arm strength, he's got the decision making, and he can take off and run. He might get clobbered because, again, he does it. He just absorbs contact. He gets hit all the time. But he's a good vessel if you've got a smart coach. But you've got to have like an Andy Reid. You got to have like a Kyle Shanahan. If you're going to have like the Patriots, where the Patriots put a lot on the quarterback's plate, like I don't think like that's the place where he's going to work out. So he's probably right now my least favorite of the main 4: Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and Young. So I think maybe out, but I do agree with what you're saying. Word, it concerns me. Are you out on him at 9? If
he's
the
only guy left, and they tried to trade up, and they take him, I will talk myself into him. There's no question about it. I'm afraid. So here's what I'll say.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
We tried. No quarter. Like I can't do it any longer, man. And he does have the tools, and I do think that Reich is going to put in a good system. But
so you don't think it'll work, but you're down to try.
I'm down to okay, yeah. I'm down to roll the dice over like just punting on quarterback, like just not being serious at quarterback.
Yeah,
I'd say that I would rather take Levis at 9 versus like signing Derek Carr. easily.
Would you rather trade up next year's first round pick, trade up to 1, take Stroud, or
Trade
Levis at 9?
I would rather trade up.
Okay.
And I'll say that I would be relatively upset if any of the other guys were on the board and we took them. We took Levis over them.
Okay.
But I do get it.
Okay,
I guess I do get it.
I understand your mindset.
It's a tough one.
I think I understand where your head is at.
And
I
at
think
least like with the Panthers, like if they got Levis,
they do have a good offensive line. That's true. But the other thing is, like, if you take a lot of bad sacks, and I'm picking you in the top 10, that makes me nervous about the creation aspect of being a quarterback. If you got to be able to not take sacks like that if you're going to create. And if we're taking a guy that high and we've got to put him in a system where he can't really he can't cook, then man, I don't know. That makes me nervous.
Yeah. That's fair. Totally fair. Theo, what's on your mind right now?
I think that Kalijah Cansey is the Jamal Crawford.
I was watching him.
He's the sixth man of the year. Yeah. His bag is crazy. He's got the if ball don't stop was on NFL Twitter, he'd be like
reviewed ACC defensive tackles. Oh my God, they'd love him.
If he was in a New England area scout for a team, Kalijah Cansey would be going number 1 overall. But sadly, he is just not a starter to me. Like, he's not a first round pick to me. He's just too small. Like, I remember watching the Philadelphia versus 49ers game, and Javon Kinlaw was in the lineup, and they just comboed him, and he got blown off the ball every single play. And if I was going up against Kalijah Cansey, like, what is stopping me from just saying, like, we will be running duo on this play and then building that double team, and he's getting blown out of the gap, and then I'm moving on the linebacker and I'm just running down the field. Like, he is going to be so good in 3rd and long, 2nd and long, like obvious passing situations. You can sub him in. He's got this crazy bag, like every pass rusher move in the book. Spins, chops, rips, like maybe not a bull rush because he's pretty small, but he'll just break out some crazy stuff. So I think he's going to be able to win as a pass rusher on the next level, but it's going to be just a handful of snaps per game. You can't have him down there on early down. So I've seen him mocked. I think Chad Reuter, I think that's how you pronounce his name on I think it's NFL.com, had him mocked like in the top 16. And it's like, dude, he's just going to be there for
has him up there too.
A handful of snaps every game. And I'm sure they do because they're like, well, pass rushing is the most important thing, and he's the best at that. And maybe he is. Like, I don't even disagree with that. But, like, what is preventing me from just running duo? Again, we'll build that double team on him. Maybe he can convert to edge, but even then, like, tackles are going to move him. I'll just call outside zone, and, like, is he going to set a strong edge? I don't know. Like, he's not run defense. You need to be a good run defender to get the privilege to rush the quarterback every down. And I just don't think he's going to earn that privilege and it's not like through lack of trying. I don't think he's like necessarily like lazy at it, or he's just too small. He's tiny. Like, look at him. He looks like a wide receiver.
He's listed at 280 right now. I was looking at him a little bit earlier today, and I can't help but agree. I mean, if he was any lighter, it would be like a Najee Sanders type situation. 280 is like the absolute floor for a college defensive tackle, you'd really think. I think about some of these, like what defensive tackle in his mold as like a first round pick has really worked.
Well, people say Donald because Donald was an undersized defender that went to Pitt, so he must be just like Cansey. But it's like Donald is built like a fucking square. Like, that guy is low to the ground. He's like a badger, you know. He's just he's really, really, really strong, and he's got good leverage. He's just built like a pit bull, and it's okay. And you could just look at
he trains with knives.
Yeah, he trains with knives, and he's just Aaron freaking Donald, dude. He's the greatest defensive player of all time. Like, I don't want to hear it. He's not like, I don't want to hear any Donald comparisons. I never want to hear a Randy Moss comparison for anyone. I don't care who they are. I don't want to hear an Aaron Donald comparison for Jalen Carter. Like, it's just irresponsible. Like, no one is going to become these guys. We're talking about the greatest ever.
They might, but it's like such an unrealistic expectation to play.
Right. Like, there's some other undersized defensive tackle that with a deep bag of pass rushing moves coming out of college that you could compare this guy to. Jerry Tillery is a more likely outcome than Aaron Donald.
Oh, Ogunjobi is another guy I think of where it's like that's more of a pass rush specialist type interior guy, and that stuff is cool, but ultimately, unless you think that he is so strong at that weight, or you think he's going to be able to put on major weight that you think he'll be able to hold his own in the run game, it definitely turns into a thing where you draft him and he's nice, and then it comes time to re-sign him and you're like, man, how much can we really pay a guy who can only be part of the rotation?
Yeah, the Browns let Ogunjobi go. The Bengals, play him a little bit. Ultimately, they'd rather have DJ Reader and BJ Hill on the field. So it's like,
and it's not a strong defensive tackle class, so maybe he's just so creative and such a good pass rusher that he's up there compared to other defensive tackles. But I'd rather have Ika. So, yeah. I don't think Cansey's a first-round pick. That's what I'll say. Like, I just don't think that you could take him in the first round, that's for sure. Second round, like, it depends on who else is on the board, I guess, because there's really not that many people who have like very high grades in this class, to be completely honest with you. But like, I wouldn't even feel good about him, like really good about, we just got a really good starter with Cansey in the second round. Yeah. It might be like, okay, like later second round, day 3, it's like, okay, we got a really good backup, a really good rotational guy that can pin his ears back in passing situations. But like, this is, to me, he's going to get targeted, and I don't know. I'm just not super high on him. I like watching him, but I'm not super high on him.
We'll see about him putting on weight, really.
You're a hater.
He's going to weigh in the combine at 300 pounds somehow and then not do any agility drills, and he's just going to be like made out of water. Same with Bryce Young. That's why he's not throwing. He's going to weigh in at the combine and then do no drills. He's going to weigh in at like 200 pounds exactly. He's going to eat like 7 Panda Express plates and drink 10 liters of water right before weighing in.
There's another defensive tackle that the film isn't available yet on Caddy's cut-ups, so I'm not sure how good he's actually going to be. When you mentioned the Michigan Smith guy,
he's another guy I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I started just
he's real interesting.
We can't talk
his
about
tape
him.
is available.
I was just not him. There's another guy. It's it's Jonah Tavai from San Diego State. He had like 70 pressures this year as an interior defensive lineman. And I'm like, I have to watch this guy, but the only thing I can find is like 2-minute highlight reels on YouTube so far. So I need to wait to see if he's actually any good, but he may also just end up being a pass.
He might be good. He might be bad.
Okay.
He might be good. He might be bad. But he had a lot of pressures this year. I think he led all. That dude.
I
might
personally,
be
off the strength of this report, have a first round grade on him.
But no, I was like, oh, I saw this guy today.
I haven't heard his name much in the process.
Yeah, I just go to like the PFF like premium stats. He led all defensive linemen with 69 total pressures, 12 sacks. PFF gave him a 92 pass rush grade. He gets after it. It looks
he's
like
a future bust, I fear, if he's a PFF merchant. Look at an old PFF analytics mock draft where they're like, we are not factoring in what we think is going to happen at all. This is just based off our grades.
Well, that's not their full. That's not the defense. That's just the pass rushing grade.
You'll see some of the craziest names ever in round of one in those old drafts.
Yeah,
you need some of the you need to work in some of the consensus as well. But the pressure number is interesting because like PFF is good for those kind of stats, like
right.
Objective stuff. Like I guess pressure can be subjective, but stuff like pressures and sacks and how often they're lined up in each gap. And
yeah, he led all
the tackles for
defensive tackles in pressures, sacks, and QB hits.
Yeah, and that's what people pay. Like PFF is like and
hurries. Like every single pass rushing stat, he leads defensive tackles in.
And that's what PFF like when they say every team uses our stats. Like it's true because our stats are fine. It's like teams want to know like how often guys are lined up in certain gaps, and like let's see the plays let's see the film from those plays, and that's what PFF can provide. But
the opinions
it's
and then
the grades. So
yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, but anyway, what were you talking about with Smith from? Michigan,
I think he's gonna be a first round draft pick. To be completely honest with you, there's only so many. At the end of the day, there's 31 teams making a selection in the first round. And while the more I look into this class, the more I agree with you that I don't think it's that good, especially compared to last year, where it's like, oh my God, dude. Like, if Garrett Wilson was in this class, he'd be like a top 5 pick, I mean, how many of these receivers from last year would be like the number 1 receiver? 3 or 4.
Wilson and London,
Drake,
and probably
London
Jameson Williams, and probably Chris Olave. And
I mean, it's ridiculous. Would be number 1 too.
I don't disagree with that, but I think Mazi Smith is going to go crazy at the combine. I know he's on that freaks list. I saw that after you brought it up to me. Yeah, man, you can tell he's like 340 or something, and the quickness is really there for him. He's pretty darn good in the run game, which is weird because Michigan typically I feel like has undersized interior defensive linemen. Not him though. I don't know if I would consider him like a real pass rusher. He's got a bull rush move that maybe he doesn't use enough, where he kind of just goes like this to somebody, and if he gets hands on them before they can get their hands on him, it's over because the power is real. And I know Pro Football Focus has him as like the best run stopper in college football, which I think means something in the Big Ten. But
that's a good point.
He's not totally out of it as far as the pass rush game goes, because he really is so quick for a guy his size. It's really crazy to watch. So I think that you hear about all these teams sort of late in the first round, and people start, especially this year, they're starting to get into talking about like, oh, they should make like a luxury picks, like the Bengals or the Bills should go like running back. I think that, and maybe those aren't the 2 teams that are going to go defensive tackle, but I think if we're talking about luxury picks, I think it's way more likely that they avoid running back, because I think I wouldn't take a running back in the first round this year. I think it's more likely if they do make a luxury picks, it's going to be tight end or one of these like real big defensive tackles, because I think that adds a little bit more value, and I think that's maybe a little bit stronger of a position, especially tight end.
Run Your Pool is the home of competition, bringing sports fans and their friends together to connect and compete. With over 50 game types for every sport you can think of, Run Your Pool is the one-stop shop for sports gaming. With over 2 million players, there is no better place to run your bracket for your friends, family, or office. We partnered with them early in the NFL season. We ran our Survivor League through them. They're great. It's the best bracket service that there is. And in fact, Run Your Pool is giving you guys the opportunity to compete against us in our very own Stay Hot March Madness Bracket Challenge. If you can prove that you know ball better than Stay Hot, Run Your Pool is giving away cash prizes for anyone who finishes in the top 5. And all you have to do is fill out your bracket for all the March Madness teams, and you earn points for each pick you get right. Just head over to play.runyourpool.com/stayhot to enter your picks when the bracket launches on March 13th. Again, that's play.runyourpool.com/stayhot to enter your picks when the bracket launches on March 13th. Run Your Pool, the home of competition. Another one I'll say is, and this is something I've hinted at, but I don't think that Paris Johnson Jr., I mean, he's offensive tackle 1 off the board in like most of the mocks I see and in most of the like big boards that I see. And I really think he needs time. Like, I really don't think he's going to step into the league and be like a good left tackle right away at all. I think he's actually going to be pretty bad, like right off the bat. And it makes sense because he's a true junior who played left tackle for 1 year at Ohio State. It's not like he was this stalwart, but he's not very strong and his punch is bad. So he's letting people into his frame, and he also doesn't really have the functional strength to not have that not be a big deal. Like, when it happens, he can get walked back. And what I like about him right now is he's kind of bendy and flexible, and he can kind of contort his body and shift himself and buy some extra time just because he's like able to kind of throw himself and block someone's path or get in someone's way. So I like that about him, but overall he's not super technically refined, doesn't create much displacement in the run game, and he's long, but he doesn't play long because he's not getting into people's frames, right? And if they're in your frame, it doesn't matter how long your arms are, you're getting bull rushed. So with the thing with Paris Johnson, I know that Ohio State had good pass protection this year and all that, but I just don't think that he is. When I watch a top 10 pick at tackle, I'm thinking like Charles Cross. That guy, just hand placement, it was perfect like every single time. Like, it was textbook. He'd get his hands in the frame, like on the bicep and opposite pec, and then drop his anchor and just stop him. He was consistent. It happened over and over and over again. Ike Ekwonu was like, had this mixtape of the craziest pancakes you'll ever see. Like, just run around multiple times a game, just running guys over, throwing them out of the club, just steamrolling guys. And Evan Neal was 6'7" and number 1 on Feldman's freak lists or something like that, and played at Bama and didn't give up any pressures or anything like that. And then you look at Paris Johnson Jr. and it's like, this guy is a top 10. Like, those are kind of what top 10 picks look like. This is not what a top 10 pick looks like to me. So I am low on him, I would say. I'm low on Roderick Jones, but a little bit as well for similar reasons, where like he lets guys into his frame. He doesn't play as long as he is because of these technical issues, but I like him a little bit more because I think he's got more functional strength. And but my favorite in the class is Anton Harrison, like pretty comfortably to me. So that I guess is my hot take on the tackle.
Where do you stand on Skoronski right now?
Skoronski, I think, is going to be fine. I know his arms are short, and I don't know if he's going to be like this dominant left tackle when you've got all these guys with like ideal length, like ideal size. But I might have Skoronski ahead of Johnson Jr. and maybe even Jones. I'm still working, I guess, on my exact report on him, but I really like Anton Harrison, and like I very comfortably have him above like Paris Johnson Jr. I would say, like, okay, that I guess is my hot tackle take and my first impressions of this class.
You do. I like Harrison. I've come around on Harrison.
Come around. You always liked him.
I'm saying, like, because originally, I was on my Ohio State kick. And I'm like, oh, it's both the Ohio State tackles, and it's JSN, and it's natural. It's like, but I started watching. I watched Skoronski, and I'm like, honestly, Skoronski's better than Paris Johnson. And then I watched Anton Harrison, and I'm like, honestly,
I guess
he's just so good. He's really good. Like Anton Harrison, he's played the entire year, 20 years old. He just turned 20, and like his feet are good. His hands are good. His punch, he's like just as long. He's huge. He's
going to win Rookie of the Year and not be able to buy a drink.
Like 6 foot. Well, he's 21 now, but he played the whole last season, age 20. He just turned 21. I think I just said he just turned 20. He just turned 21. And he's smart. Like, he always passes off games. He always passes off stunts. He's pretty fluid. Like, he flips his hips and can recover when he's beaten. I'd like to see him stop lunging. And sometimes I think he stops his feet in the run game, and there's not like that mixtape of pancakes that Ekwonu had, for example. But like, damn, the guy checks pretty much all the boxes to me.
I guess my question for you then, Theo, is like, I know you're lower on Dwan Jones too, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but.
Well, I haven't watched too much Jones yet. I watched mostly Paris when I watched Ohio State. Jones, I guess I wouldn't say I'm like especially.
Well, if you do end up being like that, I mean, Ohio State's pass protection was unreal this year. I mean, it was unbelievable the number of plays they had where they were just sitting in the pocket and just waiting and waiting and waiting, and it shows up on the Stroud tape when you watch it. So my question is, if you're lower on those two guys, how exactly did that happen?
I guess my retort would be, I mean, I still have like a second round grade on Paris Johnson,
Fair
right?
enough.
I just see him mocked to the Jets or the Titans at 11, and it's like, I don't know about that. But if you can get, if him and Jones are, you know, day 2 picks, and you know you're in the Big Ten, like that's probably enough to be. And you're coaching in your Ohio State, and Stroud has pretty good pocket movement, is getting the ball out fast, and you know it's definitely enough to be pretty damn good, right? So I guess that's probably my initial take on it. Is like, I don't think that he's trash. Like, he was getting beat over and over and over again. I just don't know if he quite. I just think he's a bit raw still, and it makes sense considering, you know, he only started a year at left tackle. So
most offensive linemen do take time to get.
Tackle's a tough one
to flip that. Tackle's tough too, but even guard, like Wyatt Teller was bad for like 3 years. Right. It's a pretty frequent thing for like offensive linemen to take a few years, especially if, you know, you're like Paris Johnson, you've only played the position for a single season.
Yeah, I'd like maybe a chart, if one exists, of how long it takes on average, maybe first Pro Bowl or first season. I know maybe AV on approximate value on Sports Reference, like how long it takes them to get their first double-digit season there, or first Pro Bowl. Like, how long does it take these different positions to usually get there? Because I know tight ends take forever. Like, there's never any good young tight ends, like first-year tight ends. And so I'd be wondering exactly what position tends to be good the fastest. I would assume running back is obviously going to be at the top. And tight end is
probably is usually pretty low, but there
were so many good ones this year that, like, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. Right. And even the year before, Surtain and Horn were pretty much good out the gate. Although I guess Horn was hurt most of the year, but he's been good since he stepped on the field.
Yeah, he was good his first year as a starter, and he was good in like those 2 games that he played his rookie year.
Right. And then Trayvon Diggs
was terrible his rookie year.
Yeah, but then the year after, he led the league in interceptions.
Yeah, Jair good right away for the Packers. But yeah, I don't know exactly.
That would be interesting to look into. I'm
sure someone has looked into it, but if they haven't,
I would. If they haven't, then I'm doing a lot of math, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
What do you have?
If we're talking about corners, Devon Witherspoon is like head and shoulders, probably, over the rest of this. If you want to talk about cornerback mentality, Theo, you bring that up a lot. Witherspoon has it. I think he's got that dog in him. That man looks like just a bat out of hell when he's playing. He has pretty strong ball skills. He's flying all around the field, getting in people's faces, super aggressive. He's gonna be the guy where it's like, Matt, do you remember that Denzel Ward hit against Maryland? That Devon Witherspoon will do shit like that. I've seen
a few plays where he really gets at it in the run game. I haven't watched any of him outside of, you know, people post clips on Twitter, obviously, since he's so highly regarded.
Yeah. I think he's really good. The only other guy that I think, like, Gonzalez is going to be probably regarded for having really good long speed, I think. And then Hodges Tomlinson, I think, is going to get a lot of looks. But the problem with
that?
Him,
wait, which one is he again?
Travius Hodges Tomlinson out of where did
is he the K-State guy that did so well at the combine? The corners are a total blind spot for me right now.
That's the TCU
I hate
guy.
corners.
It's
the TCU guy, right?
Yeah, he's TCU corner. I'm pretty sure his uncle is LaDainian Tomlinson.
Okay,
but the problem,
I remember him getting hyped up last year. Now that you say that, I think people were like, "Oh yeah, this guy."
Really?
Yeah, I think I remember him getting.
He's pretty good. I haven't seen him do a lot of press coverage.
Hodges, he's like 5'9".
Yeah, and that's why.
I think
he lines up like guy. 5 yards off.
Yeah,
at least. No, he's always outside. He's always outside.
That's a tough life to live. But hey,
I was not to be the case in the NFL.
he always lines up outside, and he's pretty successful. He has he has one of the highest man coverage rates in college football.
Okay, maybe I'm a hater.
And there's what game was I watching earlier where it was versus Oklahoma. And it's like every other play, the opposite corner's getting beat. And then the next possession, they have him flipped to the other side of the field. Cause they're just like, well, at least this guy won't get cooked this time. But so he's good at just like hanging in man coverage off. But I've yet to see him line up in press man. And I don't see him making a lot of like physical plays in the run game. Or like he's not quick to shed off blocks, but he's 5'9", he's like 175. All right, he's not big.
Yeah. One thing that I think, I don't think that the Bills are going to draft a running back like at all.
No.
They took one in the second round last year, dude. James Cook, and he was efficient. And I know that the Josh Allen running game takes a lot of pressure off running backs because, you can option and do all these things. Like the defense has to respect it, play a little bit more reserved, and that helps. But I think he would have ended up very high in Football Outsiders DYAR stats if he would have qualified. He didn't quite have enough carries. Like I think there was enough. He kind of put it together towards the end of the year. The Bills' rushing offense, which we talked about a couple times, didn't really shine through in the playoffs. But towards the end of the regular season, they started to find some answers there. And I just don't think they're going to go 2 years in a row and say, we're going to give a second round and a first round pick on our running backs, especially when the running offense will be okay just because they have Josh Allen. Because they'll look at their numbers, they'll look at the EPA per play and the efficiency and whatnot and see we were a pretty damn good running team at the end of the day. Like maybe you'd like to be able to hand it off, and I think they should. That'll help in the playoffs if you can just hand it off and be a good team. But and maybe this is an overall take. I don't buy the Bijan Robinson first round take. I like him, but I just feel like teams have learned their lesson. I really do. I get it. Like Najee Harris went in round one, and everything, and the Steelers probably regret that. Like Najee was fine towards the end of the year. Like he definitely got better, but like, do you think they probably could have picked a different guy and not a running back? Like it's just not worked. And Pacheco just won the Super Bowl and he's a 7th round guy. I just feel like teams, there's just too much evidence. You'd have to be an pretty out of the loop, analytically to take a running back. People are like, oh, Bijan, he might go top 10. Like, no, who is making that mistake post Gettleman and post Saquon? Saquon was the best running back in college that probably has been coming out in the last 10 years. And he went 2, and he's not even going to get a second contract with the team that drafted him. So, yeah, I just don't think that teams, I think that it's going to be a while until we see that again. And maybe if the Dolphins had a first round pick, maybe something like that. But I just don't see the spot where he lands. Detroit, Minnesota. Even
Jeff Wilson is good for Miami. Like they've had decent answers.
Look, coming from the Shanahan tree, they're going to take a running back in the 3rd round every single year, but they're not spending the first on him. I think I agree with you. If Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall couldn't go round 1, I think that's pretty telling because both those guys were
Breece scored a touchdown like every single game in college. You look at his Iowa State film, and I remember like watching some of the broadcast angles of him that I couldn't find on all 22, and they'd be like, and this is his 17th game in a row with a rushing touchdown, and he had long speed and vision and patience and contact balance and receiving. He had everything, and he went round 2, and he was awesome. But he still went round 2. I know this is probably a hot take, but I prefer him over Bijan because I think he's got better long speed and explosiveness.
I don't think that's a crazy take at all. I think Hall's a really complete back. I would say that I don't disagree with the take. Like, no team should do it, and I feel really strongly about that. However, that does not mean that no team will. There are dummies out there, and it's like, the last 2 guys picked in the first round were what? Like Najee from a team that is still maybe kind of, they have like a bell cow mindset, and then Urban Meyer and him taking Travis Etienne because he had a bunch of yards against him in a playoff game or whatever. Like that. Yeah. Okay. But it doesn't mean that nobody's gonna do it. I mean, even smart teams like the Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a first-round draft pick.
That's right, he was.
Which is just crazy that happened.
And sometimes it's just how the board falls. Like, remember the Cowboys last year? Jerry Jones accidentally flashed his big board at the reporters, and people could zoom in, and he only had 19 first-round picks on there. Or 19 guys really worth a first round pick. And that was in a better draft class than this. If you're picking 31 and you've got 15 first round picks and Bijan is one of them, and you're like, this guy, I know all the stats and I know the analytics, but if I take him, he's going to be fine because he's a running back, and he's going to be in the rookie of the year conversation because he's going to be fantasy RB5. And I'm not getting fired for that. No one is pointing to that pick and saying yeah, he messed that up he directly screwed that up. There might be a fringe of people out there who say he messed that up because it was a running back. I don't care what number he puts up. And those people, I don't even necessarily disagree with those people, but taking him, if you know he can be productive, gets you another year to take someone else. And if there's no one there, that's the logic to taking Robinson. But I just don't think the teams that need a running back are quite in that mindset. It's the Lions and it's maybe the Vikings that they move off.
The Bengals, I think.
And the Vikings won't do it in the Bills. But again, the Bills just took a running back. They just took one. If they didn't take Cook last year I think it was 2. It was definitely day 2.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're going to do that.
Even the Bengals, Samaje Perine was pretty good this year, and
they're not rolling out with Samaje Perine. Yeah, so I said Bengals earlier. Yeah, they totally could.
I guess you could be right.
And that's a team where you can't really lock down what their biggest need is. What are they going to take? They're going offensive line even more. They could.
Their fans would actually kill them, though. If they took a running back, they'd be so mad.
I think Mixon is mega gone.
Oh yeah, but
yeah,
I think they still would be super mad because it's we need Mixon is a talented back, and he couldn't do anything behind that offensive line. So what is Robinson going to do to help us? Which is probably a valid question to ask. So, but you're right that they don't have
they need offensive line.
If all the tackles are gone. But even then, I'd probably
it would be a very bad pick.
If Darnell Wright was still there, or Jones from Ohio State, or maybe Anton Harrison is there, I think he's going to rise up draft boards as more people watch the tape.
He will. We did that mock with Walk the Mock, and Anton Harrison fell really far that I ended up taking him at 21.
I don't think that's him falling really far at this point, but I think that's I don't think he's a lock top 15 pick at this point, but I think he could maybe be after the combine.
Yeah, we'll see. Trying to think what else.
That's all I've got. All I had written down is already said. I don't know if you guys have anything more.
I really think the Colts are going to trade up to 1, and I do think they're going to take Young because I think they are definitely all getting fired if they don't have a quarterback. Plus, that's all this class is going to be judged by is their quarterback. It doesn't matter. Every other pick could bust, but if their quarterback is good, it does. This is a successful draft. So you could trade the rest of your draft to pick 1. And it wouldn't matter because it doesn't matter because he's the only guy that people are going to care about. So who cares if you're giving up picks to move up? No one's going to care about those picks. They only care about this guy. And if you like Young more than Richardson, or if you like Richardson more than Young, or you like Stroud more than anybody, whoever your number 1 guy is, you might as well just take him because it's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter. Who cares if everyone else does or doesn't work out? So I definitely think that they're going to trade up. They've been on this quarterback carousel for such a long time. I mean, there's a real chance someone else trades up with Chicago if they don't, and then it goes quarterback, Arizona, who knows what happens, and then you're getting your 3rd choice, maybe your 4th choice. They just can't. That's just not a reality they can live in because since Luck retired, it's been this constant revolving door. Same thing with the Panthers too, because what did Reich say today? I've learned the value of
Yeah, and that's why
like
he's
had Matt
learned the
Ryan
lesson. We don't have to go
year.
through this crap again. He knows.
Yeah, he knows.
No
So, like,
Carson Wentz for you, Frank Reich. No. You're taking a damn quarterback. Yeah, I agree. The Panthers just have to get a quarterback. And the rest of this draft class is not that good. So if you're trading away like the second and the third to move up, dude, I don't care.
Exactly. Like, who cares? What are you missing out on? It's not like this is some amazing class of like a bunch of guys that I love. So yeah, trade up, get one of the guys you do like. And I think that we're gonna see the Panthers and the Colts trade up. I really do. Because
I wouldn't be surprised to see that Arizona pick go.
I think the Cardinals, like, but who knows with Carter, right? Because if you don't like Carter, then it's like, well, maybe I don't care about taking Anderson number 3. Like, I can trade out and miss out on Anderson. Because Carter is the only guy in this class that I think is like in that tier 1 of prospect. I think Anderson does get a little bit overrated. Maybe that's a hot take. And I still think he's edge 1. But
if you got Tyree Wilson at like what 9 or 10, you could probably live with that.
It's a lot easier for the
I would
Colts
be
to trade up than it is for the Panthers. I think it's going to cost a first round pick for the Panthers to move into the top 3. An extra one, I mean. The problem is that like
with like at 5, maybe they could trade up to 5 because. Is it going to go quarterback?
That's what I was saying. I don't know. It's a tough one. Well, this is too much maybe talking into the future when we kind of need things to shake out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I'd rather trade the first round pick and get the guy we'd really like because I really cannot do it anymore, man. I'm so sick of it. It's unbelievable.
It's so funny because
you can have my quarterback.
Darnold perfectly fits Reich's mold.
See, I don't want to. Great, he can start the first 4 games before inevitably throwing a 75-yard game with 30% completion percentage and an interception. People start chanting for, Richardson, and then he comes in and then it's perfect. And just like Cam Newton,
just like Cam Mayfield, man. Do I have any
just
other
like
takes?
Baker Mayfield.
I really feel strongly about. I like Tyree. I like Nolan Smith. You guys, people know this.
Yeah, we know about that. You
it's
like
pretty good edge rusher class.
There's some intriguing guys for sure. There's a lot that just try to. There's a lot who are not complete. I would say that's what's nice about Anderson is he's a complete player. Like he's good at everything pretty much, but he doesn't have. Right. I don't think he's elite at anything. Like he doesn't have elites. He doesn't have great size. He doesn't have like elite bend. He doesn't have like this crazy bag of pass rushing moves. He's good though. Like he plays with good technique and he can convert speed to power. And he's got a good first step and he's smart. Like he diagnoses things in a flash. So like he's good. He's definitely edge of 1. But like when people are like, oh man, Will Anderson, it'll be a while till we see an edge rusher like him. Like no one won't. Like respectively, no, it won't. We will see a Will Anderson tier player like next year or the year after for the edge. It's also been such a bad edge group. Like these last 2 years are like, I think he's maybe better than Thibodeau or Hutchinson, but it's since Chase Young, there hasn't been like any of those like, oh my God, type of edge rushers in my opinion.
I guess that's fair. I think the only other thing I would maybe have to say is that like, I think there's just a lot of good, there's just so many good Bama players.
I feel like this is a weaker year for Bama. It's basically just young
and yet there's Young, there's Gibbs, there's Anderson. I think Byron Young on their defensive line is pretty decent. There's Branch.
Because there'll be years where like 2 of their linemen, their whole receiving core, and like 4 of their defenders
I guess that's
are like all first rounders. And now it's like
I guess that's
Young
fair.
is good, Anderson is good, Branch is. I think he's good, but he's pretty like he's not on. I think Mel Kiper didn't have him in the first round of his mock, so it's not like he's a consensus first rounder.
Yeah,
but it's really just the 2 who are like consensus first rounders. It seems like, which I think this is the weakest Bama I've ever seen. To be honest with you,
from the perspective of first rounders, but I think like compared, like if you look, that's like you said, Kiper doesn't have Branch in his first round. I think that's a mistake. I think Branch is a fantastic player. I think Byron Young is going to be, one of those guys that goes in day 2 and ends up being a pretty good defensive lineman for a team. It's not, it's not going to be a bunch of, you're not going to have Devontae and Waddle and Evan Neal and all those guys, but there's still some dudes there. Bama still has some dudes. Let them cook.
Yeah, they always will. They always will.
But I don't really have anything else. So,
who are you most excited to see at the combine? Who are you just jumping up and down with glee to watch run around in their shorts and
Mazzy Smith? I'm most excited to see how he runs, and then maybe Richardson if he runs the 40.
Richardson would be interesting. I'm kind of intrigued on Mayer. I want to see how Mayer moves.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I could see that because
Darnell Washington's another one.
He's got to beat the bad athlete allegations. Mayer. I'm very interested to see Brian Brzee. He kind of feel like he's to me, he is kind of in no man's land right now, where it's like I'm not totally sure if he's an elite athlete or not, or like he's a very, very fringe first round pick. I feel like the draft community as a whole is just kind of waiting to see what he does at the combine to determine his draft stock, because no one knows what the hell to do with him right now, because all of his, like he was really bad versus the run this year. He was too upright. He was getting blown off the ball. He wasn't super explosive or impactful really for Clemson, but he's supposed to, like, you watch his high school tape and you're like, wow, this is the best high school tape ever. And then like his freshman and the beginning of his sophomore year was pretty okay. And even towards the end of this year, like his UNC game, he was kind of hooping off the edge and winning one-on-ones and being productive. So it's like, yeah, maybe. And this year he had a bunch of bad shit happen to him and he was recovering from injury. So at least I kind of punted on him until like the stock after the combine. And I think the NFL community as a whole has kind of done that as well with him. So he's someone that I'm really interested to see if he like tests like an elite athlete or not, a little bit farther removed from that injury.
Yeah. Maybe Hodges Tomlinson might be another guy.
And JSN. I just want to know.
JSN. I forgot. Scott, you have to know.
He'll be fine.
He's probably been training combine stuff. I think he'll run a little bit faster.
I hope he runs like a 4.4. That'd be so funny.
That'd be funny, man. Good. He's wide receiver 1. I don't care if he runs a 5
I kind of think he could. Like, if all you train since that injury is speed, if you've been training specifically to come back and run this 40, it's not unthinkable. It's like, I don't care
what he runs. Almost like I really don't, because I know that he's slow.
I know we've seen the tape. Like we've watched it. So like we know. Like I've seen him run an open field and get hawked. But like
I just want to know. I want to know how fast a slow player can run the 40. Like hypothetically, like can he really? If he runs it in the 4.4s, I'll know. Like okay, so I can't trust any of these times. I still think he's very good, but he just like undisputed. He just is slow. Yeah. Like that's just the way it goes. But Jarvis Landry is slow, and so is
he had a good career.
Okay, Keenan Allen.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else, so I think we can get on out of here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast shooting the shit with my boys. And as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we hope Theo has a wonderful vacation. We hope Matt's house gets fixed very soon. And until
you're never getting that house back, man.
No. I'm not.
And until next time, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.